I had my like get up and I was like
Yeah.
walking to go get coffee or something like that. And somebody was like, "Oh, are you out going for a hike?" And I was like, "No, I'm actually going to go walk across the country." And they were like, "Ha ha ha, that's funny." And I was
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, that's really funny."
This is an exciting episode because you are doing a very unique thing that, like, as soon as I saw it on the Missouri subreddit, I knew I had to have you on the show
I appreciate that.
because you're walking across the country right now.
Yes, sir.
And that also means you passed through where I got this from, and this is my degree, and this is not my degree, where I give you a backstage pass into the life of a full-time freelancer and content creator, and sometimes I get to hang out with cool people like...
Holden Minor Ringer.
Who are you, for the people that don't know?
I am walking across the country, and I started up in La Push, Washington, and I will end in New Haven, Connecticut. But before that, I got to go south down to Atlanta, and then up to Washington, D.C., walk to Washington, Washington, New York City, and then the wonderful city of New Haven, Connecticut. And today is day 236 of the Walk to Washington, Walk Across America.
Okay, so we got to go back to like day negative like 200. What sparked the thought like, hey, I'm going to walk across the country?
Yeah, so the seeds were kind of started. I was studying for an international finance exam back in May of 2021, and I was looking out the window, wishing I could be anywhere but there. But I've always been a big walker, but I wanted to go for a walk at that point in time. But I was like, I got to study for this exam. And as kind of a form of procrastination, I just started Googling, walking across America, or what would it be like to walk across America? And just, read some people's experiences of their journey and walking across America and what it took and what kind of resources were required. And I was like, oh, that's kind of a cool idea. And just kind of the seeds were planted in that moment. Nothing was like official or anything, but it was like, oh, that seems like a cool thing. Maybe I'll do that at some point in time. And then fast forward to December of 2021, I had moved up to Washington State to do an AmeriCorps Vista program up in Everett, Washington. And I was flying back to Dallas, Texas, which is where my parents live, for Christmas. And I got a text on the plane that, oh, sorry, honey, I have COVID. So I was going from Washington State in the winter, which is like the coldest, rainiest, darkest time of the year, to Dallas, Texas, which was like 80 and sunny. And my mom has COVID. So probably didn't want to spend too much time in the house. She was going to be fine. So it's not like it was, oh, what's going to happen? I need to, be here for my ailing mother. But yeah, so then I was wanting to, let's go walk outside. So on the solstice of December of 2021, I just was like, oh, let's just go for a walk around Dallas. So I ended up doing a 20-mile walk around Dallas, just kind of as like a form of reflection on the year. And when I got to the end of it, I was like, I can do this every day. And kind of after that, it was all just like plotting and planning and preparing to do the walk across the country. And it's pretty much all of the course of 2022 and the start of 2023. I just was preparing, doing a lot of walking, doing a lot of camping, doing a lot of talking to people who had walked across the country and trying to build a sense of perspective, mentally and physically preparing. And here we are, 236 days later after the start, and in St. Louis, Missouri. So
yeah, I want to talk more about like the prep work that goes into this, because this is quite a tall task.
For sure.
Like it's a lot. So I guess did you like start going on routine walks that were like 20 miles plus? Did you tell me about some of those conversations that you had with some of these people and like kind of the reactions of like your immediate circle of like, you told them, yeah, I'm going to walk across the country. And they were like, what was their kind of response to that? Yeah.
I mean, to answer the first question, like there's a lot of different stuff that I did. Like, I mean, just even started when I got back from like that, like when I got back to Washington, I just started walking to and from work, which was like about like 4.5 miles, like one way. So it'd just be like, that's something I would do. I would wake up earlier and I would do that. But then also it was just like when I was living up in Washington, there's a lot of really great like trails and resources in order to just like go do big walks. So when I was living up in Everett, I would walk down to Seattle, which was like 30 miles or so, or I'd walked around all of like Washington a day, which was like 56 miles, or I would walk from, there would be like trails that were kind of in some of the counties and just like do 40 miles, whatever, or just go into the Cascades. And additionally, I would also do like backpacking trips where I would do, camping components, because I really had done no camping like prior to preparing to the walk. It wasn't like I was some, outdoorsy, crunchy granola person who was doing a lot of this prior. It was like, it seems like a cool idea, but obviously I'm gonna have to spend a lot of time sleeping outside if I want to do that, just because it's the cheapest way. Hotels are kind of expensive. So so kind of a lot of that physical preparation just did that over the course of 2022, started 2023. And then kind of like mentally talking with people, I think one of the biggest takeaways I had taken from talking with people was just that like America's friendly, America's generous in a lot of ways. And I think like that's always an interesting thing where like people will ask me, it's like, oh, did you expect to like receive so much generosity you have? And it's like, in some ways, yeah, because I'd talked to people or I'd read people's experiences walking across the country. And I feel like that was always like the first thing that they had talked about was like they could not thank enough people who had helped them out along the way. Because, yeah, I think in some ways, and this even goes back to like, you know, talking with the circle, talking with the family, you know, they're going to ask like, oh, that sounds really dangerous. Sounds like a really dangerous time to walk across the country.
I can see that.
Yeah, but it's just so interesting when you actually talk to people who had walked across the country where they, you know, they talked about just like how great of an experience was and had no regrets of it whatsoever. So I think that was kind of an interesting place where I was like, in a lot of ways, like putting my faith, where in some ways, like I believed that was going to go well. I had no, like, there was no way to prove that unless I actually did it. And that was kind of the thing where it was like, where for the longest time, like my parents, I don't think believed that I was actually going to do it. I think like, you know, I would tell them and they're like, sure, honey, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. They were like,
and
then, it'll happen. Like,
for sure.
Yeah, you can do that.
Yeah. And then December of 2022 rolls around and like, I'm about to start the walk. And they were like, you know, are you sure you want to do that? Like, you know, I don't know if this is a great idea. And I think I remember flying back to Washington after that and feeling a little shaken where I was like, you know, do I really want to do this? I don't know. So as a result, I just decided, well, you know, let's do a dress rehearsal. So I walked from Vancouver, BC down to Seattle, which took me about 9 days or so. I didn't tell anybody, you know, it just like, I kind of, you know, see if this was something that like I had done some walking, but it was mostly just like, you know, kind of walk out in the boonies, just kind of by myself. But this was more of a, you know, realistic of what was going to happen along the walk. And yeah, so I started out walking that first day. And like the very first night I was like going to pitch my tent in a park in Surrey, British Columbia. And I met this guy, Jake, who you know, he's like, oh, hey, you know, are you looking for a place or anything like that? And I was like, yeah, you know, I'm looking for a place to pitch my tent. And he was like, oh, let me show you. So then we just start having like a conversation. And yeah, and then he tells me where it's like, oh, well, do you want to come back to our place? You know, and him and his mom like let me pitch a tent on their like back porch, and like they like feed me like dinner and like bring me things. Yeah, and like I was very fortunate for that, and I feel like I remember that first day doing that walk where I was like, no, this is totally, you know, the experience, the journey that I want to have. And it's like it wasn't like I was walking in like the Pacific Northwest in January. It's not like it was this easy thing to do.
It's not
but,
like
but
there's
you know,
a lot of natural elements going on, and it's like it's just a very like physically, and I'm sure there was a little bit of mental tax there as well.
For sure, yeah. So, but over the course of it, like I just had this great experience, and I was like, oh, I can't wait to do, you know, the rest of the walk. And you know, here we are, 236 days later, and it's been a great experience. So,
all right, so let's go through day one. Or I guess day 0.
Okay.
Whenever you were like, okay, I'm ready to do this.
Yeah.
And you started to like take your first steps towards the journey. What was kind of going through your mind in that moment?
You know, it was funny because like when I for a long time I had to put like a date which I wanted to start the walk at, because I think if you don't put a date, then you can always push it off. Because I think it's just something where it's like, there are a lot of people who have like, you know, big dreams, big things they want to do, but, you know, life gets in the way. And I think it was really important for me to like, no, like this is a date. So initially I'd planned on starting April 1st, but then it was like, oh, people are going to think this is an April Fool's joke. So I'm going to start March 31st. But then I was like, well, and the plan was initially to start from Seattle. But then I was like, well, I'm already close to the Pacific Ocean because Seattle's technically not on the Pacific Ocean. It's the Puget Sound, the Salish Sea. But I decided like, let's start March 8th from La Push, Washington on Second Beach. And yeah, so then I started March 8th. I took pretty much I took all public transit in order to get out of there, which made it pretty convenient. Like I just, you know, went out there by myself, got a hotel in Forks, Washington, which people are familiar with Twilight. Like that's the town that's set in.
Yeah.
So that
Twilight fans are going to love that.
Yeah. So it was kind of a funny place to start from. But yeah, so then I took a bus out to Second Beach, which is like a really beautiful, really great beach. And yeah, like it was funny. I put my left foot in the Pacific Ocean. I didn't put my right foot in so I could keep my right foot jealous of my left foot. And it's, you know, you got to make it to the Atlantic and then you can put it in.
I was going to say you're going to put the right foot in the Atlantic.
I think so, but I think I'm also probably going to, you know, go head first, you know, after I, you know, but right foot gets first dibs. So, you know, as long as he carries me there. So yeah, but it was just like a very cool moment, I think, to be starting that. And yeah, it was just like, it was something where I got to start by myself. Which like there was kind of like two starts to the walk too, because there was that started that walk and it took me a week to get back to Seattle. And then took a couple weeks to like sell my car, sell my furniture, build a website. And then March 31st, I got to have like kind of a group send off with like friends and family. And I think that was really cool because like on one hand, like the walk is so much of this like independent alone time that you're spending with yourself. But at the same time, it's like there is this huge like communal element to it where it's like there's so many people who are supporting me from afar or like people I'm getting to see along the way. And like I don't do this walk alone. Like obviously I'm putting the miles in, but I don't know if I would have been able to make it here without like the help of others. So I think it was very symbolic that, get to start out like, by yourself, but also with others too. So
yeah, it's so cool that like you have all these like little details
for
through
sure
the journey and like all these little milestones that like it's going to paint a beautiful picture once it's all done.
I hope so. Yeah.
Like it's going to be so cool. So day 0, you're out here, you're feeling motivated. You're feeling good. Start walking me through like, quite literally through the first like state or two. Like,
first state or two, yeah.
First state or two. Let's kind of get through like the first, couple months of this journey.
Yeah.
How is that going? Like, what kind of people did you encounter? What kind of situations did you encounter? Like, was it kind of what you expected at first?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of what I expected for the most part, because I think mentally I was preparing. I was seeing like other people's experiences. And I also there was never a point in my time in the preparation where I was thinking it was like, it's going to be rainbows and sunshine every day and everybody's going to be nice to me and I'm going to love this. Like, I think I was very much like preparing for it's like, it's going to be torrential downpour all the time. You're going to be walking through farmland, because it's like, and also I think a big reason like why I want to do the walk across America instead of like saying the like PCT or the Appalachian Trail or anything like that is just because like America's highways, America's parking lots, America's strip malls, it's as beautiful of a country it is. It's like we haven't like built a beautiful country. And I think that was like there was no I guess like illusions that everything was going to be like the PCT along the way. So I think there's some of that, but no, I mean I walked through the Olympic Peninsula, and the Olympic Peninsula is the rainiest part the rainiest place in the entire country. So it's not like I was like, oh, I hope it's going to be sunny there. It was like very much prepared for it to deal with the rain. And yeah, I mean, just like that first week crossing the Olympic Peninsula, it was just, dealt with a lot of rain. But at the same time, like, I think something I was like so looking forward to and kind of expecting on the walk was just like to meet like wonderful and incredible people. And like I did, like that very first night, like I was on the phone with a friend of mine and I was telling him where it was like, yeah, I think I'm probably gonna have to like knock on people's doors to be like, hey, do you mind if I pitch a tent? Like that's what I had heard other people had done. And, I'm gonna try it myself. So I was like, okay, let me hang up. Let me go try that. And then the first door that I knock on, the guy who I was talking to had biked across America, like I think back when he was younger.
Gosh.
So it's just like, he was like, yeah, of course you could pitch a tent. And then him and his wife actually like brought me into their home. Like I was able to like sleep in their house. Like they made me dinner, had a lovely chat with them. It was just like a really incredible and like warm experience, like, start the walk. So, and honestly, just like the first week or so, I had, lots of experiences like that where, people just helped me out or like, I remember being, I think it was like day 3, I was like sleeping under this bridge in my tent. And then it was like a Friday night, and under the bridge is I think it's the spot for the youngins to go drink at.
Okay.
So then I like go down there and I'm pitch tent. I'm ready to go to sleep. And then these kids or young adults, like they come down and they're kind of chatting. They're like, by themselves, but then they see like my tent and they see me over there, and it was like a very interesting experience because one of them, they come over to me and they're like, hey, how's it going? And I'm like, oh, I'm going to try to avoid them. Yeah. But she's like, no, like, she's like, oh, hey, what's going on? Oh, is this your tent? And like start having a conversation, and it's like, oh, that's so cool. And I'm like, oh, what are you doing? Walking across America. And, but then she's like, oh, let me get my friend over here. So then her friend comes over and like, we start chatting. It's a good conversation. And then their boyfriends like are like very like scared and like skeptical to come over. Because, I think they think I'm like a meth head, underneath the bridge. And, we just have a good chat. And like, finally, like the boyfriends come over, and it's so interesting. It's like the boyfriends, like they are the ones doing the most talking. Like I don't even get a word out after that, but it's like, once things are like safe and calm, it's like, then
once the wall is down, like,
exactly.
All the words come flooding out.
So like, and that was a really cool experience. And it was so funny because it's like I told one of them that like my bike had gotten stolen like way back. It wasn't like nothing had to do with the walk. I just like mentioned it, and they're like, "Your bike got stolen," and then immediately they like pull out like $25 from their wallet and they're like trying to give it to me, and I'm like, "No, like let me just finish my story, you know? Let me just like it has a good ending." But then they like go and throw the $25 into my like tent, and it's just I don't know.
They're like, "Please take the money."
So it's just like stuff like that definitely happened along like the first week of the walk. And I think what was really cool about like Washington and Oregon, which like the two first states, was like, yeah, it was like the rainiest time of the walk. Like walking from Seattle to Portland, it just like it rained more and more every single day. And yeah, I mean, like I remember, I think it was probably like day 16 or day 17 was like easily the rainiest day of the walk. And I remember like looking up at the sky, like, and being like, is this all you got? Like, and it's just because like I expected this. I think it's like, if that was something that, you know, like ended the walk, it's like, I didn't need to be going on this, but it didn't. I had a smile on my face when I was walking through the rain. And sure enough, like later that day, like I knock on some doors and I meet this guy, Mark, who, you know, ends up letting me sleep in his like airplane hangar and like buying me McDonald's and like let me like put stuff in the dryer to like, you know, dry off.
Oh, that's so
it's just like, you know, random generosity has been like very much shown my way, like very much from the start. And it's like anytime that I receive that, it makes me think, well, you know, okay, the people in this town are generous. I wonder what the people in the next town are like. And then I have that great experience in that next town. And so it's been phenomenal for the most part.
So what kind of stuff during the beginning did you even bring with you? Like what was the stuff that $20 bill was hitting?
So I actually started the walk using a backpack. I had planned to use a backpack to walk across the country. I've since moved to a stroller, but I was using a backpack. So I had my tent, I had my sleeping pad, sleeping bag, just like sleeping stuff, had like the stuff that brush my teeth, like, you know, clean off with. But a lot of it's just like clothes and, you know, kind of regular stuff, stuff to stretch and roll with, food, water. I mean, just kind of the bare essentials for the most part. And, yeah, I think that's about it in terms of
what was like your go-to snack?
Go-to snack. One thing I eat a lot of is Pop-Tarts and like tortillas with like either peanut butter or Nutella in them.
Interesting.
That's always.
What's the reasoning for like both of those items? Because like that's not. I mean, that's not typically what you find yourself eating on a daily basis. If you're just like,
it's not
doing a traditional 9 to 5.
No, it's not. It's just like for one, like they're both like they're sold in most stores, even like gas stations.
Yeah.
So they're pretty accessible. They're pretty cheap. I mean, with Pop-Tarts, there's a variety of flavors. Like one side quest that I have along the walk is to try every single Pop-Tart flavor available.
Pop-Tarts, please sponsor this man.
Yeah.
Please.
I'm at 19 of 22, I think. I did the math actually before coming here.
Really? So what do you have left to try?
So there's unfrosted brown sugar, there's unfrosted blueberry, and then raspberry. Raspberry is a low key one that I haven't tried. So
okay, is there a reason you've like? Because like unfrosted, it's like that makes sense.
Yeah,
but why raspberry? Have you avoided it?
They just haven't been sold in a lot of places. I think.
Really?
Yeah, because I mean, like the default fruit flavors have been like strawberry, blueberry, cherry.
Yeah.
So like I've had all those a bunch of times.
S'mores, stuff like that.
Yeah, no s'mores.
I feel like
sugar.
it's everywhere.
Yeah, no, and they're great. Like I love those. The most. Like if I could not recommend a Pop-Tart flavor, frosted grape. Frosted grape is 1 out of 10.
That's a flavor?
It's actually, I've only seen it in Kansas and Missouri. So maybe Missouri has an affinity for frosted grape Pop-Tarts.
We do?
And yeah, but don't recommend it, please. I'd actually love to meet a frosted grape Pop-Tart lover, because I just
maybe we'll find one in the comments.
Maybe.
But like now I feel like I need to try it just for the experience of like it's that bad.
You can. It's just like I just don't think fake grape belongs anywhere near a Pop-Tart. And I mean, I had to like I think even before like trying it, I was like, I don't know how this is gonna go. And usually I'm a pretty optimistic, keep an open mind, but it was I don't know.
Was there like a flavor that you found more often in the first part of your journey?
I don't know. I don't necessarily know if I was like looking for it. Like now that I've like established it, because like now I'm like looking for these 3 flavors.
Yeah.
And I think Walmart may have like exclusive rights to some of these Pop-Tarts.
Really?
Yeah. I'm not.
This is kind of fascinating.
I can't say that for certain because I thought frosted grape was one of them, and then I saw frosted grape in a Schnucks. So it's like I don't necessarily know if that's the case, but like there was like a red, white, and blue flavor that I don't think is technically like on the official flavors list now.
Yeah.
But then also also they had unfrosted blueberry and I think unfrosted brown sugar. But I always try to go to like the local grocery store instead of going to the Walmart. And even that, where it's like Walmart's usually generally by interstates, where it's like I don't tend to walk near interstates. So it's like even those can be kind of hard to do. But
they're like the convenience store, but like the big box store.
For sure.
You know?
Yeah.
Interesting. Pop-Tarts. So then what's with the tortillas and peanut butter?
They're just easy to store, and also, I mean, they last a while too. I mean, like tortillas and peanut butter, like they're usually like pretty high energy. And so Nutella like freezes or like hardens when it gets cold, but peanut butter doesn't. Like I still use Nutella, but it's much better when it's warmer out.
Plus, it's like a dense amount of calories too.
Yeah,
it's like a lot of lot of nourishment
for sure
in like one little thing.
For sure. But yeah, no, tortillas are like really easy to store because they bend. Whereas like bread, it like squishes and it like breaks apart.
It like deflates.
Where it's like the Mission soft tortillas are like they keep their shape pretty well. But I'm able to like put it in pockets in my backpack. So yeah, those are like pretty big staples.
Did you ever set like any of those challenges or like mini bucket lists for the entire trip in the beginning?
No. So that's actually kind of a funny thing about the walk, where it's like there's just these side quests that just kind of appear.
Yeah.
And obviously the main quest is like, get into Washington, D.C., get into the Atlantic, cross the country. But it's like, there's just been bunches of side quests where it's like, I like for a long time I wanted to go to a rodeo. But the thing with rodeos is that they happen on different weekends in different towns. So it's not like every single, the 4th of July weekend, it's like, you're bound to get to a rodeo. It's just like, you just missed it, or it's 3 weeks ahead. But I was finally able in Steamboat Springs, Colorado, that it was like, it happened for 6 weeks straight on Friday and Saturday. So I was able to go see a rodeo there. But yeah, no, there's just lots of different little side quests like that. And
So once you started making it to the warm areas, like, Arizona, I'm assuming you went through?
No, so I went through...
Oh, no, Arizona.
I've been through Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Utah, Colorado, Kansas, and now almost the end of the Show Me State. So I see Illinois, but I haven't been there yet.
It's there.
Yeah.
It's just not quite there yet.
For sure.
One of the things that we talk about is how flat and boring Kansas is.
Okay.
Was it an interesting walk, at least, to go through?
So I want to, one thing I always say is that America is more so the people than it is the land in a lot of ways. And I think when I was in Denver, like a lot of people were like, oh, I can't believe that you have to walk through Kansas. Oh, I don't know about that. Because like a lot of people have driven Kansas through I-70. And I think like that's what their perception of is it. Like, but in all honesty, it's like I'm like the very first 30 minutes that I was in Kansas, maybe even less than that, a guy in a minivan like pulls over and he was like, oh, we saw you on church, and sorry you driving when we were driving to church. And he like hands me snacks, he hands me Gatorade, and he offers to like host me for the night too. And he's like, well, do you need some lunch? And he like drives back to his home, makes me lunch, and like brings it back to me. And
oh my gosh.
And it's just like that was like very much like my experience in a lot of Kansas. Also, like what was actually really great about Kansas, which was different than all the other states, was when I was on US 36 in the northern part of Kansas, every single county seat had like a public campground, like a free public campground / city park, where it's like no other state that I'd walked through had that been the case. So it was like as long as you can make it, which is like the 25, 30 miles to the next county seat, you always had a place to sleep.
That's so cool.
Yeah, no, it was great. And I think what was also really funny about like walking through Kansas, where it's like, I think what people think about Kansas is like, it's really flat. It's like sparsely populated, a lot of farmland. And it was funny because I think Eastern Colorado is more Kansas than Kansas is in some ways.
They won't like hearing that.
Yeah, no, but no. So I like for the most part had like a pretty good time in Kansas, and I mean the people were friendly, and I was like always had a pretty consistent place to sleep. I got to eat some Casey pizzas along the way. And
Casey's Pizza.
It's great,
It's so good.
I'm a supporter of Casey's Pizza,
Oh yeah.
And but I mean, I was expecting to look at farmland, and I saw farmland. It's just so yeah.
I mean, it's you're gonna run into it.
Exactly.
It's inevitable in Kansas. I mean, it's the Midwest. You're gonna run into a lot of farmland.
For sure.
So you entered like Kansas City, or like was it near Joplin? Where did you enter Missouri from?
So I entered St. Joseph, Missouri, which is
he went the northern route.
Yeah, so US 36 across the Pony Express Bridge, and so my grandparents have always lived in St. Joseph, Missouri. So Missouri is actually like a state that I spent the most time in before the walk of any of the states that I'd been through. Partly because I'd went to camp down in Branson, Missouri for like 10 years.
Oh yeah.
And then also grandparents live in St. Joseph. So
yeah.
It was actually even funny getting into Missouri because some people like I didn't think you could go over that US 36 bridge because there's like an interstate that crosses it.
Yeah.
And like I had seen it before and I was like, that looks terrible. I don't know if I want to walk across that. But somebody was like, oh, you should reach out to St. Joseph Police Department in case you can walk across it. And they were like, yeah, you can walk across it, but we'll send you a police officer to help you get across it. So fortunately, when I was crossing over from Kansas into Missouri, Officer Geyer like helped me get across the state, like get into the state.
Yeah.
Which was very nice, very fortunate. It's also kind of funny because it's like part of the reason I'm doing the walk is to, I think, shine light on like how unwalkable America is in a lot of ways. So it's kind of funny that it's like you need a police officer in order to even get into the state, for safety.
That's kind of crazy.
But but very fortunate to Officer Geyer in the St. Joseph Police Department. I think like my pop-up when he heard about that was, I'm going to write the chief of police a letter about that. And, hopefully, it's nice to hear.
So you made your way down, I guess, down to like Columbia?
So I went from St. Joseph, spent a couple days there with my grandparents, and then I went down to Kansas City, and I was hosted by a lovely woman there, Lisa Wynn, who is, she's a great cook, but also very connected in the food space. So got to eat a lot of great food in Kansas City. And then, near the stadiums in Kansas City is where the Katy Trail, really like the Rock Island spur starts, which is like Missouri has been a state I've been looking forward to for a long time because of the Katy Trail, because a lot of times when I'm walking on highways or just walking on, heavy trafficked roads. And I don't want to be walking on those roads, but it's like there's no alternative. That's kind of the point of it. But in Missouri, there is an alternative. It's the Katy Trail, and it pretty much takes you across the whole state. So walked pretty much from Kansas City, stopped in Columbia for a day, had a great time there. And then, took the Katy Trail all the way to it. It ends, I think I got off it right near St. Charles, and then crossed over. It was like the 364 bridge into the county, and then last Friday I walked into St. Louis. So
that's so cool. So how long are you planning on staying in like the St. Louis area?
So I got here on Friday, and I will probably be here, I think, this weekend, and then maybe leave on that Monday or that next Monday.
And for context, it's Tuesday today.
Yeah. It's just there's a lot of things I feel like I kind of need to get done. Some of the times it's just like writing, but like I'm also like applying to grad school right now, so just like being able to do that too. Like I haven't really been able to do that west of here so much, so I want to take like the time of the deliberate effort. And then also there's plenty of people I'm meeting with here in St. Louis, and really looking forward to doing that and just spending some time in the city. So
okay, what kind of stuff have you done so far while you've been here?
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, like the people who are hosting me these last couple nights, like they're big like urbanist bikers, and I was able to borrow one of their bikes. So I pretty much just took a bike tour around the city where I got to go see like some of the like quirkier sites where I went to go see Lemp Mansion. I got to go see the Mural Mile. I got to go like bike past the Anheuser-Busch facility. There's the Waterfront Trail, which goes by like some sites. There's the Mary Meacham Crossing, which was like part of the Underground Railroad. I got to go to the site of the former Sportsman Park, which I guess was the stadium before Busch Stadium. Then went down to the Pruitt-Igoe remains. Went to go to see the Chess Hall of Fame. Biked around Forest Park. That's great. Went to go around Wash U a little bit. And then over near where my hosts were staying, kind of they were over in the Fox Park, but went to go to the Compton Hill Reservoir Water Tower, which apparently St. Louis has like. There are these like 7 standing water towers left in the country, and St. Louis has 3 of them. Yeah. So, be proud about that, St. Louis. And and then went up in the Arch earlier today, so that was good. Hoping to go to the City Museum, hopefully go and try in the Art Museum at some point in time, and hopefully to walk, bike around, and maybe take some transit around town.
Yeah, there's a lot of museums in the city of St. Louis.
For
there's
sure.
a lot of like, and they're like really interesting museums too.
It seems like it, yeah.
Like that's cool, and like we also have a lot of free attractions like the zoo.
For sure.
So there's a lot to see here in St. Louis.
No, I've been really excited to come see it.
I'm excited for like the rest of your stay also, like just to like hear about what you've done.
Yeah, it's even funny with like St. Louis, because I think, I think a lot of people's perception maybe outside of St. Louis is, I don't know about that city. It seems kind of dangerous. And it's so funny being here in St. Louis because it's like that St. Louis perception of like East St. Louis, like since being here. And it's always like, this is kind of been like a feature earlier in the walk where like I would get to a town and they would say, oh, the people in this town are great, but the people in the next town, I don't know about them. Yeah. And then you'd get to the next town and it's like, oh, the people in those town were great. So so I don't know. I'm not planning on spending too much time in East St. Louis, but it is like this kind of thing where it's like it's hovering. I can't see past the Cargill factory or like the casino. And then actually we went up in the arch today and I was expecting I think like a lot more in terms of like a city, but it was like no, it just kind of looks like farm fields. For as far as
it is kind of weird how like right across the river there's not like a lot to see in terms of like tall buildings and stuff and like a lot of development, but like whenever you look on the Missouri side, it's like, oh, you could see so much for miles. For sure. Like, it's interesting how that worked.
Yeah.
But
I'm sure I'll go hit up the strip clubs or something like that over there. So, or I think that's what's over there
across the river.
No, well, yeah, I was hearing like that they that's where the strip clubs are. Like, I'm not actually going to strip clubs, but then they are like the bars are open later. I think over there.
Yeah, like right across the river. That's where.
Yeah,
like just a couple miles into Illinois. Even. Yeah, that's where a lot of like late night entertainment is.
For sure.
That's how I'll put it. Late night entertainment.
I can't say I spend too much time with the late night entertainment just because like I rise with the sun and I set with it.
Yeah.
Like my bedtime's like 9 p.m. in all honesty. So
okay. Have you like consistently been going to bed around 9 p.m. and like what time do you wake up for this?
It really is like I rise with the sun, I set with it. So like it changes. Like now that the days are shorter, I feel like I have like less energy in that way. Like I usually wake up around like 5 or 6, I would say, like recently. But yeah, no, it's like once it starts to get like around like 8 or 9 or so, it's like, oh, Holden's getting a little sleepy. So
yeah, it's like, all right, maybe it's time to go ahead and relax.
It's time to pitch the tent. But yeah, I mean, but even like before that, say if I was like camping east of here, and I was like, in my tent, like I probably would have already pitched it by like 4:30 or something. Cause I usually get in my tent, like, or I pitch my tent by the time it's dark. So, but then I'll just catch up on like doing social media stuff or doing some writing or like texting people or making phone calls. So
I definitely want to talk about the social media aspect because that's that's how we even found each other. It's like social media. So like, how have you been incorporating different like social media platforms and like, what is your strategy with documenting this journey? Yeah,
it's actually been kind of cool. Cause like, I mean, really since the start, I was always trying to figure out like what I wanted to do with it. And what was actually really helpful was that like I think that walk from Vancouver, BC down to Seattle. Because I think that like my primary mode of using social media has kind of been doing stories on Instagram and then doing posts here and there. But yeah, so I think that's always something I've wanted to keep where I'm just like always do like a daily like story series. Yeah. So like that's been really great. Like people told me, it's like, oh, you should hop on TikTok. The thing with TikTok is that it can be sometimes difficult to upload the videos when you're in like a more rural place. Yeah. And it's also just like another layer that I just don't feel like I had capacity for, because like what I've been able to do recently is, so I will have Instagram, but all of that stuff is connected to it's connected to my website where it's like, people can see the post, but then it's also connected to Facebook. So I don't even have to like do anything on Facebook, just, post on Instagram.
It's just one place that you can post and it goes to like all these different channels.
Yeah. And kind of what's happened recently, whereas like, I think how I even gained like some traction was like, I would post on Reddit. So like what I've been doing since leaving Denver has been like, I will post in like the city or the state subreddit. And so when I was in Denver, I was like, hey, I'm walking across the country. If anybody sees me, feel free to say hi. And then like the Aurora one, like kind of just do that. But then like within the state, like I thought I was going to do like just a post getting into Kansas, being like, hey, I'm in the state. If anybody sees me, looking forward to it. But then people were like, oh no, we want to see more. So then I just like kind of kept doing like a couple day post on Reddit in Kansas. So people were enjoying following along. And then I got, a little bit closer to Kansas City, and I was like, oh, maybe somebody on Kansas City will be interested about the walk. And it's kind of just been this virtuous cycle because once I like post on Reddit, then like if you get enough upvotes, then I think like media organizations reach out, which is like cool. And then like say I have an interview with some media organization or say somebody like yourself, and then it just kind of opens up the possibility for more people to kind of follow the social media. And and then all the Reddit posts I just put on my website as the form of a blog. So it's like anybody who is like, say in like Kentucky or, New England who wants to follow along, it's like, they don't actually need to be in that subreddit. I could just like write the Reddit post. Like, I'm sure it feels a little bit different because I feel like I do tailor it a little bit for Reddit, it's like I'll mention subreddits, but Yeah, but then it's like there's a lot of like cross-platform, I think, so it's like more efficient because I enjoy doing the social media, but it does take up a lot of time and it takes up a lot of energy. Where it's like if you walk 25, 30 miles a day, like you just want to rest at some degree. So being as efficient as possible with it is really helpful.
So once you pitch that tent, like, do you like watch Netflix and stuff? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah, it just kind of depends. I mean, usually I start out like before I even pitch a tent, I do a lot of like stretching and I always get like my dinner in before do that. But then yeah, pitch a tent and usually like I'm pretty exhausted, I'm pretty tired, but I like will take a bit of time to like respond to messages or to do the social media. So I'll do that. Sometimes like I will watch Netflix. Like currently I'm watching Kuroko no Basketball, which is like a basketball anime. So
I've heard about that. Yeah.
It's a good show and it's kind of funny where I think some people like maybe like their perception of like fictional people walking across the country is just like Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, people ask me like, oh, were you inspired by Forrest Gump? It's like, I didn't even really like the movie. It was like an all right movie, but
I feel the same way.
Oh yeah. But it's like
that might cause a comment war, honestly.
Maybe. I don't know.
Some people are passionate about that movie.
I'm sure. And if that's what inspires you to go walk across the country, then I'm not going to yuck your yum. But yeah. I think it's interesting with like anime where I don't think most people will be, they write in their memoir, Monkey D. Luffy inspired me to go walk across the country. And like, not necessarily, but it's kind of funny where it is like there are a lot of common themes where it's like going on an adventure, making friends, like, surpassing your limits. And it's like, I feel like I do that every day. So I don't think I'm like going to get, I don't know, an anime tattoo on me because it was like, this is what inspired me to walk across the country. But it's like, it's kind of funny, like watching anime where it's hey, care about your friends, go on these adventures, push your limits. So
it's like the lessons that kind of are very similar.
For sure.
No matter what you watch.
Yeah, no, exactly. So there's a little bit of that. I'll do some reading. But then, yeah, honestly, for the most part, I just like want to go to bed and
I'm ready to sleep.
Yeah, because I spend I kind of walk usually somewhere between like 8 to 10 hours a day, and but I also probably rest for about 12 to 14 hours because especially with the longer nights, I'm just kind of in my tent laying down. So
yeah,
but yeah, no, so that's kind of what I do.
So I guess along the way, like kind of going back to like just the togetherness.
Yeah,
I'm noticing one common theme here is like people are just being kind and generous.
For sure.
Like, has it been like a lot of people's generosity that's kind of like helped fuel this journey?
Yeah.
And like kind of describe like your experience with like meeting all these different people in these different states and like what that's been like.
Yeah. I mean, I think whenever people ask me, it's like, oh, what are you most excited about like going forward? It's always like, oh, I can't wait to meet generous and wonderful people. And it's just like, that's the truthful, honest answer because it just, I've met so many incredible people along the walk who have just, they didn't know me beforehand and maybe I was just a stranger on the side of the road pushing a stroller.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I've just been the benefactor of so much generosity. And I think some people, they maybe who perceive the world through like a screen or like watching cable news, it's like, it's a lot of doom and gloom. If it bleeds, it leads, outrage generates clicks, but that hasn't been my experience. Like 99% of my interactions with people have just been so overwhelmingly positive. And yeah, it's just, it's impossible to imagine me getting this far without like the generosity and like the kindness of strangers. And it varies, on what people are doing. Like some of it's just like somebody like buying me a protein bar in a gas station. And other times it's like, them giving me like their entire house for a night or two, and it just definitely variations. And I remember actually it's, what is it? When I was back in Kansas City, the woman who I was staying with, this Lisa Wynn, she does like food content videos.
Yeah.
And she like put out a video of like her cooking for me. And I remember like the top comment was like, "Ma'am, that was very dangerous of you." And there was like thousands of likes for that. And I just thought it was so funny because it's like, if she had just like gone through and seen like, what I experienced on the walk, or was like, me meeting all these generous people, like, or whoever posted this comment, it's like, you could have just seen that. Like, but it's like, I think people want to like believe the negative narrative in some ways, that it could go wrong. And it's like, obviously things could go wrong, but I also think it's like some of the danger is just like so much more mundane than what people give it credit for. It's like the most dangerous thing I deal with every day is just like people on their phones, driving a car, but it's not some, evil guy with a gun or, a wild bear or something like that. It's just a danger that I deal with walking on a highway in, say, like northwestern Colorado. It's like a danger that somebody driving a car in St. Louis is going to face. So it's, at the end of the day, there's the perception of danger. But like for me, which is so inspiring that it's like, okay, I met some really great people in say St. Louis or St. Louis County or, wherever along the K Trail. But, there's going to be somewhere east of here where I'm going to keep meeting generous people. And that's like, in some ways, I never want to feel like entitled to the generosity. I think that's always like a very important thing for me, because although I know that it's possible and I have a lot of faith that, that I will receive generosity because there's a lot of great people out there, I never want it to feel like, oh, I'm owed, this generosity. And I think that's always something that's like very near and dear to my heart. So
along this journey, I'm sure there have been moments where it's like been physically or mentally, you've been like, you got to push through this and like, you got to keep going. Have there been moments where you're like, maybe I should just go ahead and just call it quits here, or maybe I should just maybe reconsider like how I approach this? What kind of walk me through some of those moments?
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's ever been a moment where I've like seriously thought about giving up. So there has been that, but there's definitely been moments where it's like, I think I need to take a break. And that's been really important for me. So, I mean, I think it was somewhere around like day 30, day 40, I had some pretty bad plantar fasciitis in my left foot, like east of Maupin, Oregon. And, the thought was where it's like, if I just keep walking east of here, this isn't going to get better. But I knew that like Bend, Oregon was like pretty close by, and it's like a very active city where I'm sure there was going to be like plenty of physical therapists and like, get that checked out. So, I made the call where it's like, let me hitch a ride down to Bend, Oregon and, try and get some help there. And fortunately it was because like somebody in Maupin, Oregon who I'd met and had a nice conversation with, like had given me a business card to be like, oh, hey, like if you ever need any help, like reach out. So like she got me connected with one of her friends, and so that was great, and got down to Bend, Oregon. And as soon as I got there, it was like, there was very much like, I feel like I had tunnel vision where it's like, we're going to make this work because I'm going to get back on the road at some point in time. But it's like, I got to get better first. So as soon as I got there, I started reaching out to physical therapists, and then I actually didn't know anybody in Bend, but I did have a way, I think, of finding a place to stay. I mean, there was a hostel there that was able to stay at for a couple nights. But what I did was there's like a, if you're familiar with like couch surfing, it's kind of similar, but it's called warm showers. It's mostly for like bike packers who do like biking, like camping trips. But my bike is my legs, so I fall into that category. So I've used that to like find a place to stay. So I pretty much just like mass blanketed everybody who was in Bend who is like on there and be like, hey, I'm, explain my situation. I'm probably going to be in Bend for a bit. I don't know if anybody would be willing to help me. And yeah, actually like a couple people did. Like most people, they were like, I don't know if I can, or I'm gone away. And it's like, I'm not trying to win prom king, I'm just like trying to get one person to believe in me. So then this couple, Leslie and Klaus, like they were like, yeah, of course you can stay. And yeah, I mean, they let me stay at their place for a week and a half, like come and go as I please. Like they said, like eat whatever you want. They even let me drive their Prius like 7 hours to go pick up a stroller.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I mean, just like incredible, wonderful people. And yeah, so it was just like, there are moments where, it's tough, it's difficult, but it's just like an opportunity to regroup. And like another one was when I was getting into Denver, like the Salt Lake City to Denver stretch was a lot of desert, a lot of mountains, a lot of staring and sagebrush. And it wasn't like I was thinking about quitting, but there was a moment where I remember I was walking after Breckenridge, and I was in the mountains and I was carrying my backpack over the mountains, and there was a family that rolls up in a car, and they roll down the window and they say, hey, what are you doing? And I start explaining to them, I start giving them like the little gas station pitch. Oh, I'm walking across the country, yada, yada, yada. And then just in the middle of it, I was just like, I don't know if I can talk anymore. I'm sorry about that. And I just walk away from them. And that was like the first and only time I had done that the entire walk. And it just, it very much was like a signal that was like, I think, something was really wrong. So yeah, eventually I got to Denver, and I was only planning on being there for like a week or so. Ended up staying there for 2 months, and it was just, in all honesty, it was like a 2-month therapy session for me. And I had planned on actually staying there until the end of February. I had gotten an apartment, I had gotten a lease, and yeah, had a great time there. I think that was one of the things I feel like I was really missing was a sense of community. Just because like on the walk, you're constantly meeting new people, which is great. Yes. It's phenomenal. But sometimes it's like, you just want like friends to hang out with. So I think I was missing that. And I think also was really looking for like a sense of normalcy and a sense of familiarity, because, with the walk, there's just a lot of regularity, which is it's great, it's wonderful, but it can be very taxing.
Yeah. And you're in like a constant I mean, I'm assuming here,
Yeah.
but like a constant state of like adaptability.
For sure.
And like you have to be like ready to roll with the punches
sure.
at any given moment.
For sure. And, you know, I think part of me just like wanted to sleep in the same bed and like wake up and make eggs in the morning. But what was interesting, like over the course of my time there, was that I realized that actually, I think a huge part of that walk was like not, you know, being in an apartment, making quesadillas, watching Breaking Bad. It's like you are supposed to challenge yourself. You are supposed to be uncomfortable. And even if like that staying in Denver, like put me 2 months back where now it's going to be, you know, I'm going through the Midwest. I'm not actually going to be walking through the Midwest during the winter. I'm going to be going south, but it's like, it changes your plans because, you know, things are getting colder.
Yes.
But that's all right. You know, I would rather be uncomfortable. I'd rather be walking through the winter than, you know, being here making quesadillas.
Yeah.
And,
Now you're making quesadillas with peanut butter.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
road.
So, you know, and they're tasty and they're scrumptious and they provide lots of energy. So, yeah. And at some point in time, I just decided, I'm just going to leave Denver. So, September 25th, I set the date for it and subleased my apartment. I, you know, sold all the furniture that I bought in the time there. So, it really wasn't that like difficult to actually, you know, get up and leave. And and said goodbye to the friends that I had made there. And, you know, I mean, they're still my friends. And
it's more like see you later.
For sure. Exactly. So it was, you know, important part of the walk. But at the end of the day, like my goal is to walk across the country. And that always has been. And I think it's just, even when there have been these difficult, challenging moments, it's like there's always that North Star, that guiding light that it's like you're going to keep going. And like one guy who I've talked to, who actually is currently walking across the country too, the way he described it was there's an authoritarian presence. Like it's this authoritarian presence just keep on going to finish the walk.
Yeah, just like driving you to actually complete the project, essentially.
Which in some ways I think is like beneficial. I think it's helpful because it keeps you going. But then also it's like you don't want to push through when you are struggling. Like you should take a moment to reflect and rest, and that's all right. So there's no timetable for the walk. I'm a 25-year-old guy with no dependents. Like I hope to have a career, hope to have a family, hope to have all these wonderful things like after the walk and community. But right now we're focused on, you know, doing this walk. So
yeah. So you're about to enter, I guess, the next half-ish.
Yeah.
Do you have like a rough ETA of when you think you'll finish?
Sometime in the spring, I would say.
Okay.
But it also just kind of depends on like how long I want to spend in places, because the difference between the West and the East is just there's a lot more cities in the East. And kind of what I was saying with like America's more so the people than the land. It's like because there's more people, there's more America, and there's more America to see in some ways.
Yeah. So I'd say the eastern half, the population is a lot.
For sure.
More.
And, you know, I mean, I was shaking hands with Sagebrush and now I'll be shaking hands with people in the East. So, yeah. So, I mean, looking forward to it, but I TBD on when I get there. And I don't know, it seems counterintuitive. Like I definitely hope to finish the walk at some point in time, but if I'm just going along where it's like the goal is just to finish, just to, you know, get done with it, then I'm missing something. And it's like, well, why didn't I just fly across the country? Why didn't I just drive across the country? Like you should be appreciating and learning and, you know, moving slowly through these places. So
yeah, because if you like have this set date or whatever time in mind that you want to like, you're like, I have to arrive here on like April 3rd, and that's going to be the day. For sure. Like, then you start like kind of like giving yourself like this rush of like, okay, I need to be out of this place by this date. Like I need to be here by this day. It adds like that sense of urgency when like that really causes you to miss out on part of the experience.
It does. And it's also like incredibly physically taxing on your body too. So it's like, it's really important to be able to rest and to listen to your body, because I mean, the thing, kind of a much more mundane thing that ends the walk is like getting a stress fracture, getting some kind of injury where I would say potentially have to like stay in a place for a while just to recover. And it's like, I don't really want that. I still want to be able to move while also like resting. So just trying to find the balance between those two things I think is really important. So
yeah, I would like, I'd imagine that this experience has made you like very in tune with like listening to what your body is saying.
For sure. Yeah.
And like understanding how you're really feeling, like, okay, maybe I need to take it a little more easy today, or like today's going to be one of those days that we're going to churn through 40 miles, you know, something like that.
For sure.
So I guess map us out through the rest of this journey. So you're going to go down to like Kentucky?
Yeah. So going through Southern Illinois, going through Kentucky, and then going down to Nashville. And then probably the plan is I called a friend. I'm going to be staying with a friend for a bit in Nashville. And then I'm going to leave my stroller there. And I think I'm going to go down to Florida and like spend Christmas with my family down there.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that'll be just nice and like a good break. But then get back to Nashville and then go down to Atlanta, which is like where I went to college.
Yeah.
And from Atlanta, then I will go up through, I guess, Greenville, South Carolina.
Okay.
But, kind of in that area, up to Charlotte, North Carolina, then up to Durham, which along the East Coast, there's the East Coast Greenway, which is kind of like a loose confederation of trails, but
Okay.
I'll be able to pick that up in Durham. So I'll take that Durham to Richmond, and then Richmond to Washington, D.C., and then Washington, D.C., I will go to Baltimore, and then Wilmington, and then Philly, and then New York City, and then New Haven, Connecticut. So kind of going south and then kind of going north.
Why New Haven?
New Haven. So part of the reason I'm able to do this walk is I inherited some money from my grandparents who passed away in 2017 and 2021, and their memorial is in New Haven, Connecticut. So kind of as like a way to, I think, pay homage to them and show appreciation towards them. I think it's really important to do. And it's also like New York City is going to be kind of like the group end, kind of what I was talking about like with Seattle earlier.
Yeah.
Where, it's the city where I probably know the most amount of people. And it's a place where if people want to come to be at the end, like I will probably set a date for that. Give myself a little time, give myself a little space. But yeah, if people want to come to the end and, see me jump in the Atlantic, they can. But,
Right foot first.
Right foot first. And but then it feels like I also should have like an individual end because it has been this, very arduous and difficult journey. And it's been a lot of self-reflection. And I think it'd be really important, finishing it by myself in New Haven, Connecticut, and showing appreciation for, the people who allowed me to do this in a lot of ways. So.
Yeah, I would say that this has been a very like eye-opening and like also just like really just like self-aware experience for you.
Yeah.
Would I be correct in assuming that?
No, I think so. I mean, I think I always hope to get to build perspective over the course of this walk and always just, create a sense of appreciation. Because it's much harder to appreciate a warm bed if you haven't like slept out in the cold in a tent, or appreciate a great meal when you're eating Pop-Tarts, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So
not the grape ones.
No, not the grape ones. Please, not the grape ones. I think there has just been a lot of search for perspective along this journey, and the thing with it is like once I finish it, it's not like I will have achieved enlightenment. I think there's no final destination in that regard, and I think the walk will literally end at some point. But I hope to always like keep this sense of growing, learning, and just chasing a sense of adventure, even if it's raising kids or something, which is much more just the everyday kind of life. So
that's so cool though, like. That it's a very symbolic and very like meaningful journey on top of just like, being able to say, yeah, I walked across the country. Like there's like a personal satisfaction and personal achievement that comes with that.
For sure. And I think it's always, that's kind of why it's like tough to answer the why question. Like, a lot of like gas stations people ask, oh, why are you walking across America? And like the short answer is like, oh, it seemed like a fun thing to do. And I get to meet nice people such as yourself. And I get to point to them and they go, me? And yeah. So,
he's risen them up. Okay.
Yeah, no, of course. And I'm genuine. I mean that, but it's like, there's just so much lapped on to the walk. And stuff that I hope to get out of it. And some of it, like I didn't even know that I hoped to get out of it when I started the walk. So, and there's things that I thought I would be experiencing or dealing with more than I have, but really haven't. And just, that's all right. It's an adventure. It's a journey.
Are there any other things that you hope to achieve in the last half of this?
Yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things, and like this is a huge part of like just doing the publicity and just doing the media, is just like raising money and raising attention for America Walks, which is a national pedestrian advocacy organization. So, I mean, what's really cool, I think, about like going to all these cities now, it's just like, there's just more people and more opportunities, I think, to get the message out. Because I think there are a lot of people in America that like wishes that this country was more walkable, that wishes this country was more bikeable, that wishes it was more transit friendly, but
I'm one of them. That's for sure.
But, just I guess the current situation in America is you have to drive a car. It's not if you want to or you need to. It's just like you are forced to own a car. And it's in a lot of ways, it just seems kind of strange where it's like if you ever watch a car commercial and talk about freedom and, the opportunity to get places, but it's like you got to pay $9,000 to $13,000 a year in order to have that sense of freedom. And it's just I think that's really frustrating. But I think it's what's really encouraging. So America Walks is this national pedestrian advocacy organization, but like kind of this work to make places more walkable happens at the local level. So I think what's really cool is like getting to go to all these cities and meeting with local advocates and like seeing kind of the work that they're doing and, like what is unique about their city in that regard. Because every place is different. And so I think it's just really interesting learning about these places. And I mean, that's what I'm doing here in St. Louis and hope to do in Nashville, hope to do in Atlanta, and hope to do it, in cities across the East Coast. So
yeah, I can't wait to hear about the rest of this, like how the rest of your journey goes.
Yeah, no,
we'll have to do like a catch-up episode.
Oh, I would love that. Yeah, no, hopefully it goes well. So
you're an extrovert, correct? No, you're an introvert.
I mean, how do you think I spend so much time by myself?
That's true. Yeah, that's true. So that's got to be fueling. So would you say you're an introvert or an extrovert?
Well, I don't know. I feel like I've actually thought about this a lot over the course of the walk, because it's like, I think I'm like, I've always said that I'm an introverted person, and I very much believe that. But I also like, I don't know. I struggle with the binaries, because it's like, obviously I think that I'm an introverted person because I think the parts of the walk that I really do enjoy are just like, even just like being by myself in like the middle of Idaho, walking on the side of a highway in some ways, where it's interesting now, like, especially now that I've like, at least after Kansas City, it seems like the cities are much busier, where there's like a lot more like reaching out and talking to people, which is something I enjoy, something like, I definitely enjoy doing it. But I think now that there's just a lot more people to talk to, I think I will really try to appreciate, I think, the in-between. And I very much have been trying to do that in Missouri, like when I've been walking on the Katy Trail, and just trying to enjoy the alone time, because I don't think I could spend all this time by myself if I, didn't enjoy, my alone time.
Oh, yeah. You got to have, like, I guess they call it an ambivert, where it's like kind of a balance of extro and intro.
I guess so, yeah.
Where it's like you get like the level of like refueling from that alone time, but also just like connecting with people is another way of like recharging your batteries, essentially.
Yeah, I mean,
but there's a balance to it, of course.
For sure, there's a balance. I just think like I'm somebody who really enjoys my alone time. I really enjoy like spending time by myself, but at the same time, I really enjoy meeting new people. And it's like I'm not like much of like a party goer, like, or like having big groups. It's like I would much rather just have like a personal conversation with somebody. And it's like I feel like I can have that conversation with anybody and really enjoy that. But it's like, once you start getting big events, it's like that's not my scene. Yeah. So
okay, well, shoot, that makes sense. Yeah, like I said, I can't wait to hear about the rest of this.
I appreciate it.
I cannot wait.
I appreciate it, Dante.
Yeah, maybe we can do the recap episode in New York.
Yeah, maybe. Hey,
that could be fun.
Come on out. So you're more than welcome.
I've been wanting to go to New York for a while now. I want to go back. So maybe that's going to be the vibe.
For sure.
Well, shoot. Thanks so much for taking the time to like chat, share your experience. And yeah, I'll drop all of your links and stuff in the show notes and description below so people can actually, keep up.
No, that'd be incredible. Yeah. And really appreciate talking with you, and appreciate you taking the time to, spend some time and talk to me. So.
Of course. So that's going to wrap up the show for today. Again, description, show notes, that's where you're going to be able to find all the info. Keep along with the journey. Keep up with the journey. Keep along. Keep up. I'm making this really freaking easy for you. Okay? Literally just scroll, click. It's that easy. It's going to open a new tab. You're going to be ready to go. So do it. No matter what if you're listening or watching. If you're watching, I'm looking really intently at you. So just hit that subscribe button, ring the notification bell, check out all the show notes, and we will see you in the next episode. Peace.